Welcome to the session on evolution as part of our 5th semester BSc Zoology core course paper. And here we are going to deal with taxonomical evidences of organic evolution. Taxonomy, it is a grouping of animals and plants on the basis of their resemblances and relationships, and this provides evidence for organic evolution. A systematic the scientific study of the classification of organisms was developed only in the 18th century, and before that classification was very artificial, in the sense that organisms were classified on the basis of their superficial characters or arbitrary characters, or the habitats in which they are found, such as aquatic animals, terrestrial animals, air animals, etc. And Aristotle classified organisms into three divisions, namely plants, animals, plant animals. Okay, and Aristotle also brought forward an artificial classification based upon the habitat. So these were the early kind of classifications put forward. In the 18th century, Swedish biologist Carolus Linnaeus, or Carl von Linné, popularly known as Linnaeus, developed a new scheme of classification and a uniform method of naming animals, which was referred as binomial nomenclature. And this particular classification was based on their natural relationships, and hence Linnaeus is considered as the father of modern biological classification. However, he originally believed that the species was something created, which is quite different from the modern concept of species. That is, the species, the organisms were immutable. There could be no change in the species. Okay. Subsequently, Lamarck and Darwin tried to classify the animals and plants based on their interrelationships. And according to their classification, very closely related animals were placed together in the same species, since species is the lowest unit. Such species were considered to descend from a common ancestor. Lamarck, who made several improvements in the classification proposed by Linnaeus, was the first to use the words invertebrate and vertebrate in classification system. The different phyla such as Protozoa, Coelenterata, Echinodermata, Vermis, Arthropoda, Mollusca, and Vertebrata were recognized by Leuckart during his time. In 1857, Waugh separated the annelids, flatworms, and roundworms from the earlier group of vermis. So these were the a few contributions into the system of classification. Now, principles of classification. The basis of classification is the resemblances and differences in structure existing between different types of organisms. Animals and plants exhibit remarkable diversities in their organization. However, it is possible through a detailed study of such diversities to classify them into groups, and each group showing a fundamental unity of plan. The classification based on natural interrelationships existing between the different animals or animal groups, it is known as the natural classification. And in the natural system of classification, animal kingdom has been divided into large groups, which is referred as phyla. The members of a particular group having some common features, but they differ from the members of other groups in certain other characters. So it is therefore reasonable to conclude that similarities within a particular group and uh, between different groups are indicative of their origin from a common ancestor, and that variations among them can be considered as adaptations to various modes of life in different environmental conditions. That is, the similarities between members of the same like phylum, it could be because they all have originated from a common ancestor. And similarly, we can see that of members of a phylum, it is different from members of another phylum. It is because they both came from a different ancestor. So that is how we can interpret the classification system. Species, which forms the smallest unit of classification, is a group of individuals closely resembling each other, but reproductively isolated. So such similar species are grouped in one genus. The genera which have some common features are placed in one family. A group of closely resembling families are placed in a single order. And furthermore, similar orders are placed in one class. So likewise, similar classes form a phylum, and different phyla constitute a kingdom. So a natural system of classification reveals the evolutionary relationship between different groups. So we can say that the similarities are due to an origin from a common ancestor. Okay. So the binomial nomenclature invented by Linnaeus in 1758 is a method of naming an animal with two words. Okay, the first name denoting the generic name and the second representing the specific name. Okay, the two put together, it is the name of the species. For example, like Drosophila melanogaster. All right, taxonomy or the classification on a scientific basis of a millions of species of animals has thus been made possible through the binomial system of nomenclature. Next we have is a phylogenetic tree. Um, you can see this is an example of the phylogenetic tree. It has been taken from the nationalgeographic.org. And here, the different invertebrate phyla from the lowest acellular protozoa to the other complex groups show a primitive organization as compared with the chordates. So, whichever group of organisms have been placed in the lower parts of the phylogenetic tree, they are considered to be primitive groups, while those at the tip of the branches, they are considered to be the complex ones, or at the higher level it is considered to be the complex groups. Okay, so here we can see that these are the chordates, and the chordates are obviously complex as compared with the groups placed at the lower branches. Okay, similarly the various groups of chordates starting with protochordates through agnatha, the fishes, the amphibians, the reptiles, the birds, and then finally the mammals constitute a complex group of higher organization. The animals can be graded in a series of increasing complexity in an evidence of evolution. That is, more complex ones they form have these forms have evolved from simpler forms by a process of gradual modification, and it is therefore possible to visualize the phylogenetic tree where the trunk, the main trunk, it represents the oldest primitive types, and the main branches, here you can see the main branch, these are the main branches. Okay, so the main branches of the phylogenetic tree indicate the various phyla, and the sub branches of these, it represents different classes, and the further smaller branches, it indicates orders, and smaller twigs represent the um, suborders and further. So taxonomic evidence, even though we have defined the phylogenetic tree and the binomial nomenclature, the natural system of classification, etc., but it has its own limitations. So in several cases, the construction of the phylogenetic tree is difficult because the evolutionary history of animals, it is too fragmentary. It is not so clear. We don't have much of uh, information and data on the evolutionary history of various groups of animals. So it is very difficult to develop or construct a phylogenetic tree which is complete and scientific. So obviously taxonomic evidence is actually poorly developed. Uh, and this is considered to be an indirect evidence for organic evolution. Okay, right. Thank you.